Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this week's reading wrap up. First off, I'm a little bit crooked right now. My jaw's still healing from my surgery. It's doing good, it feels okay. I'm gonna try to not talk overly long just because yesterday when I filmed it got sore, like talking too much, but in general, everything went good. Still taking my meds when I'm supposed to. Just this side's still a little sore, but like, we're doing good. I'm really happy with how it's going. Feeling good, doing well, and we have another great reading week to talk about. This one is 11 books, which I feel pretty good about. That's about the same as last week. Without further ado with that, let's dive into this, like I said, so that I'm not talking for hours. So the first one we got to start out with, which there's already a review up for this on my channel. The live show for this would have actually been last night. It's tonight for me, but it is last night for you guys, and that is The Viscount Who Loved Me. Here's my back cover of this. I did the reread of this for the Binging Bridgerton. I am having a wonderful time doing this. I had so many notes to share with this. I gave this a 4.5 star, which I guess is what I actually gave it the last time I read it as well, although this time I feel like I did it for different reasons. This book is about Anthony Bridgerton. He's the oldest Bridgerton. He is the current Viscount because his father died when he was 18 years old, so he's the head of this family of 8 children, plus his widowed mother, and he's just an amazing guy. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he's decided that it's time to get married and continue his line, the Bridgerton line, but he has decided not to love whoever he marries because he is determined that he's going to die young because his father died young and he can't imagine living longer than his father. So that sounds like a pretty ridiculous premise. But once you get into it and you see the kind of man he is and his reasonings behind that, it was fascinating and I had a great time. This book has so much snark. It is definitely a hate to love. Anthony, a lot of people would say he's pretty mean in the beginning to Kate, but like Kate gives it as good as she gets, and she actually starts with like she has no reason to dislike Anthony, and she just goes at it of like, you're not good enough for my sister, I hate you. So I give him a bit of a break for how mean he is. I also feel like Anthony gets carried away with Kate because he just feels that like connection with her. And so he ends up in this like snark battles with her when really he just wants to kiss her. And I love that. So the next book I read was Truly by Carmel Rhodes. This is a, it's reminiscent of Untouchable. So that is why it got recommended to me by people, because people who know my dark romance soul told me I should try this. I have read a Carmel Rhodes before, because we read her for the Taboo Book Club for a Daddy King book. This one is a dubious consent / a forced encounter in the beginning, so there's trigger warnings for that. I mean, if you don't like that, you are not going to want to read this at all. But in regards to how much it compares to Untouchable, I think that this hero is not quite the level of sociopathic that Carter is. By that I mean he does end up feeling like guilt to some degree for what he does, whereas Carter Mahoney, he doesn't really feel guilt for the things he does to get what he wants, whereas Noah, a lot of his is connected with his anger, which is just a little bit different because Carter also will take his anger out on Zoe, but in Truly, Noah is, I don't know how to describe it. It's a great comparison. I like them for the same reasons. I did give this one 5 stars because I feel like Noah actually like works through his issues a little bit, where Carter's always very insistent that you need to bend to deal with me because I'm not going to bend to deal with you. And so that makes him a very different kind of this. Whereas like Noah, as these two grow together, Noah kind of bends a little bit for her. So maybe you might like it better than Untouchable. I don't know. Untouchable just stands out to me because it was like the first book I'd ever read quite like this. But in the sense of like always trying to find another book that's like the book that you love, I feel like truly does match that in that sense. This is also obviously diverse. It was really sexy. And again, it's that like, I mean, these kids are like in high school / just graduating high school. This one I think like starts on the night of graduation, and there's that. So give this a try. Then I read Have My Baby by Taryn Quinn. This one was just cute. So this was one that I had gotten off of e-reader IQ, which is this add-on or just a site you can go to. You don't have to do the add-on. You could just go to the site and you can go through, like, it lists the books that are like free on Amazon Kindle that day or books that are below $1.99 or something. So I had got this one. It's the first in this series that's like all about hot dudes and babies. And so this one is about a single dad, and he has a best friend who's a girl, and he asks her to have a baby for him. Pretty oblivious to the fact that she's in love with him and like was in love with him before he married his baby mama, who then was only with him for his money. And then there's a chance that like his daughter isn't even his, but like he doesn't care. Like he's adopted this kid and like she's his, not adopted, like raised this kid as his, and like paid to keep her when the woman like divorced him and everything. And now he's asking his best friend to have his baby, and she's just like, you'd really ask me to have a baby with you and then just like walk away? You know, like, you're my best friend. Like, I help you raise the daughter you do have. You want me to help you have another baby and then just like continue to be your friend. So it was a very interesting setup. This was a little bit wonky. I did get this 5 stars though, because it was so much fun. Just because of these two, like, realizing that they're on the same page of this, of like, he was afraid to ask her to stay in case she didn't want to, and she was afraid of like, does he only want me for my ovaries? And it's like, no, you guys both want the same thing, so stop being idiots. It's probably more of a 3-star, but I had a really good time, so I gave it a 4. Then I read Undisclosed Desire by Seven Rue. This book was the lowest angst book of hers I've read yet. So I have read Baby and Birdie, and I've read another book by her, and they're like all age gaps, and they're all usually pretty angsty or like forbidden. This one was just so great. So this is called, oh, I said it already, Undisclosed Desire. And it's this girl moves into an apartment with her best friend. She's in college. She's 20. And there's this guy who lives, it's either upstairs or downstairs, who has a son who's like 3 or 4 years old, who has diabetes, which was great disability rep, or like, I don't know if I'd call it completely disability, but, you know, chronic disease or something like that, has diabetes, has a pump, which I have lots of friends when I was, not lots, let me not expand, but 3 or 4 people in my high school I remember having pumps when I was young. One of my friend's uncles, he's had a pump for a very long time. And anyway, like, one of the first days that she's living there, her friend had a party. And so the guy comes upstairs and is like, hey, I have a kid. Can you not have this loud music happening all the time so my kid can sleep? And she has just moved in, so she answers the door and she's like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I will make sure that we keep it down. I just moved in here now and I don't like all the partying, so I will keep my friend under control. And they just immediately are flirting. He's 42 and she's 20, but there's just such low angst. So like, she starts coming to his place. There's a really cute moment the next day where, like, to apologize for the party, she like brings donuts to his apartment. Oh, I'm like gonna cry. It's so cute. It was so cute. And he explains, he's like, well, he has diabetes, but he can still have a little piece of this. I can't just give him a donut or something. And she's like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad that I brought all these sweets and he can't eat it. And he's like, it's okay. Like, we just need to watch it. And it was just really cool because it was a really nice way of having diabetes like worked into this book without it. You know, it does have a couple like major parts of the plot of like things that happen with this kid, but it was just a really sweet, and it was a really low angst relationship because there's not really much keeping them apart except that she's 20 years old and he's 42. It's not the kid that's keeping them apart. She loves this kid. It's more she's like, this doesn't have to do with you being 40. It has to do with me being 20, and I'm not sure if I want to commit to someone who, you know, you're looking for forever. And he's very understanding about that. And he's like, you don't have to make up this decision right now. Like, I want you to spend time with my kid. So it was still very steamy, but it also was a slow burn. But yet we're not keeping a secret that we're attracted to each other. It was very interesting because, yeah, they're just pretty clear. They're like, I think you're hot. I think you're hot. Let's just spend some time together. And it was so cute. So it was the lowest angst 7 Rue I've read yet. And I did read another of hers. I'll get to it in just a minute. But it just made me happy. So I gave it a 4.5. Probably the extra half stars because like it was too easy. Like everything was just so easy for them. Which isn't always a bad thing, but you know. There wasn't really a conflict besides like, is she going to commit or not? And I just wanted a little more of that. So then I started reading my Eva Leigh books because I found out that Eva Leigh, aka Zoe Archer, is going to be on our next romance or Rake Appreciation Society. We're reading an Eva Leigh, and she's going to be on Crystal and I's live show, book club for that. So I've never read an Eva Leigh before. So I have started them. So I started with her first book, My Forever Earl, which is the first in like the quick quills or I can't remember the name of it, but it's her first trilogy and it's all about women writers. And so the first one is about a like gossip sheet writer, and this Earl approaches her and is like, he doesn't tell her what his plan is, but he needs someone writing articles about him to make it look like he's doing one thing even though he's doing something else. I know that's really vague, but the thing that he's hiding is a really big plot point and I don't want to give it away. But basically he invites her along with him to the club that he goes to. So first she disguises herself as a man, then one night she disguises herself as kind of like his girlfriend so he can take her out to a play, and meanwhile he's looking for information, but he's like using her as a cover. She doesn't know that. And then they are kind of like slowly falling in love. So this was really great. The only problem is it has the one trope I don't like in romance, in historical romance. And sadly I've read quite a few of those recently, so it was just kind of like, oh, please don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. So I still gave it a 4-star because it was very unique. But the plot device that I don't like was in it, so that's not Eva's fault. I'm sure some people will absolutely love it. It was very sexy. It was also a very slow burn. Lots of slow burn this week, which was starting to like cockblock me just a little bit. I was like, can we just get to some business? But this was really good. I listened to this on script. Had a great time. And then I read the next 7 Rue, which was When October Starts. This one is novella. I saw Mary from Makeup and Mary recommend this as an age gap. I think it was her student teacher age gap video. But this one is, so it's kind of this like alternative school. It's like a school for like artsy kids or something like this. And there's this girl who she's falling for her teacher. It's a student teacher. And they basically just need to make it until she graduates, is kind of it. It's a novel. There's not much else to say. I gave this one a 4-star. It was good. It was really sexy. I liked the setup of the school. It made it believable that the way that they interact with their teachers made it pretty believable to me that one of them could have a romance with one, because it's just, you spend so much time with your teacher in like, not an intimate setting, but there's an opportunity for lots of private meetings. And so I was like, yeah, it's no wonder that a student and a teacher is falling for each other in this one. But it was good. Definitely more angst than the other one I read. And it was pretty sexy, so it was fun. Then I read Wild Like Us by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book 8. 8 in the Like Us series. And guys, I didn't like it. And I'm really bummed that I didn't like it. And part of it is this one isn't an HEA because, okay, so I have a whole like history with this series. I've loved this series. This was my first, Krista and Becca Ritchie was Alphas Like Us was my first one, and I loved it. And I loved reading Maximoff and Farrell, and I loved reading Jane and Thatcher. And so this one is a menage. It's an MFM menage. And so it's two best friends, two of the bodyguards, falling for Sully, which is the oldest of Reich and Daisy. And we've known this is coming, but I'm not a part of the controversy. I'm not quite as in the cult fandom that Krista and Becca have, because they do. There's almost an occult stuff for all of the Calloway sisters. And like, while I enjoy them, I just want you to write me a good story. I don't care about the drama behind some of the things so much. Like, I don't. This book has a horrible rating because a lot of people, once they found out it was a menage, just went bonkers on it and just gave it all these horrible ratings without having read it, which I think that's a shitty thing to do. Authors can put whatever couples or thruples together that they want, and if you don't like that, and if you don't think like they didn't have a problem with the two, straight women writing about Maximoff and Farrow, but then when we put Sully in a MFM relationship, all of a sudden we do that. Like, I don't know. Again, I don't pay enough attention to the drama to care. I was really excited for this relationship, and I've been dying for this one because I wasn't a huge fan of Charming Like Us. I didn't really care about Jack. Like, I really loved Oliver, but I just didn't care if Jack was involved in this or not. Also, yeah, just whatever. But this one, I was really ready for it, and it was boring. I was so bored. This was a 505-page book, and I got through it in 2 hours because I skimmed the fuck out of this book. Excuse me. But, oh my gosh, I feel like so much of that angst I have already lived through getting to this point of this book. And then, like, it ends up being, like, a long road trip, and Sully wants to, like, reclimb a lot of the mountains that her dad has done, and with just her two bodyguards, and then they're, like, intense, and, obviously she's had a connection with, I can't even remember his name, with the one guy for longer, with Kit for longer, and then Banks is there, which I like Banks. Banks is great. But then he's just like, well, are you going to make a move yet? And so it's almost like Banks is the one who then, like, pushes them to do it, because she actually, I won't spoil anything, but, And so we get through all 500 pages, and then because there's going to be 3 books about this couple, which is ridiculous. Are they each going to be 500 pages? Is this going to be 1,500 pages of this? Because we, like, just got to Sexy Times after 500 pages. And so, yeah, maybe this will be more satisfying once all 3 of those are out. But I gave it 3 stars, and I probably would have given it even less, except, like, the sex scene, when it did happen, it was good. Like, they write good smut, so I liked it. But honestly, for the amount of that book that I read, I only gave it 3 stars, and I'm just like, I'm obviously going to continue, but I may wait to continue until those 3 books are out. Then I read another Eva Leigh. I read Scandal Takes the Stage. This was the next book in the Wicked Quills, or the Quick Quills, or whatever. And this one was about a playwright, a female playwright, who we meet in the first book. She's friends of that lady. And she is having trouble writing a sequel to her greatest works. And our hero in this one, he is a big fan. And so I loved this. I loved this so much. He's a big fan of hers. And so he's, like, looking for opportunities to, like, talk with her. And he doesn't go into, like, stalker territory at all. But she is just very conscious of staying away from him because she's been in a scandal before. She was kind of taken advantage of and, like, tossed away at one point. And so she doesn't want to get sucked into that again with this new guy. But there comes a point where she is getting really pressed to finish her work, or they're going to fire her. And so our hero, he agrees to be her patron and help fund the theater company so that she can take her time writing the perfect sequel and not rushing it. And I just loved that our hero was a fanboy of hers, and it just made me really happy. So I gave this one a 4.5 stars. This was another pretty slow burn, but they have just, he does things over and over again to make it possible for her to have the best opportunity for a good story. And I really like that. It made me really happy. So then I had 2 rereads because I started my rereads. I found the Audible for one of my rereads was only $1.99. And so I bought the Audible for For Real by Alexis Hall. This is a male-male BDSM relationship. The submissive is the older. This is also an age gap. There is a 19-year-old dominant and a 38-year-old submissive. And it's submissive who is just like over it. He's over the scene. He doesn't want to do it anymore. And then he meets the submissive. And it's amazing. It's so good. They're British. This is British too. So this is Alexis Hall, who wrote Boyfriend Material, which I always tell you, like, Boyfriend Material bored the shit out of me because I'd read this book as my first Alexis Hall, and it's my favorite. It's so good. So this was a 5-star. I'm rereading a bunch of my favorites and trying to rank them, and I'm telling you, I've only reread 2 of them, and it's already super hard. Because the next one I reread, which I also got the audio for, was Chasing Cassandra by Lisa Kleypas. And I adored this one. The narrator for this is Mary Jane Wells. And I haven't listened to any of the other Ravenels, but after listening to this one, I want to listen to all of them because we get to hear the voices of all of the heroes in this one, because this is the last sibling to get married, and she has a really beautiful love story. And I love Tom. I feel like Tom is on the spectrum a little bit. I don't know. I feel like he might be, just because of the way his brain works, but this is a, like, friends to lovers. This is a, like, billionaire situation. He is a railroad magnate, and he overhears a conversation in the beginning of our story where he hears that Cassandra wants a husband so badly, and she is plus size. Yeah, this cover does not do her justice. She is plus size and sexy and beautiful, and he hears her kind of disparaging herself. And he literally, like, awkwardly, like, pokes his head out, and he's like, I mean, I'll be your backup. I'll marry you, because she's asking her cousin, West, at the time, because this book takes place over, like, a long amount of time. So it starts before a couple of the other books have started, and it, like, ends at the end. And so she's asking West if he would be her backup, and he's like, honey, I'm not going to be your backup. And Tom is like, yo, I'll be your backup. And then he, like, goes to her cousin Devin and is like, hey, can I have her? And he's like, no, you can't just have her. Like, she's going to be loved because she is my precious, sweet little cousin, and she's going to be loved. And he's like, but I'm going to take care of her, and I'll buy her all the things she wants and please her. And so it's just really cute because they have just such a cute relationship. And I knew that this was on my 5-star for a reason, right? But the reason I'm rereading them is I forgot how much I love Tom. Like, this one is not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough. Tom is brilliant, and he starts, like, reading all of her favorite books so that he can impress her, and he, like, will pick out the wrong lessons because she'll be like, well, what's the moral of the story? And he'll be like, this. And she's like, no, you're reading this book the wrong way. And I don't know, it was adorable. It's so hard to rank these. Like, I'm so glad I'm rereading them, but also, like, ranking this is gonna be a shit show for me because it's hard. All right, and then the last book that I read this week was A Lady by Midnight by Tessa. I also bought this one on Audible. This book is book number 3 in the Spindle Cove. And it's the last full-length novel I haven't read because I read 4 and 5 and then 1 and 2, and I haven't read this one. And so I have 2 of the novellas left to read, but this is the last full-length one I haven't read. And so this one was about Kate Taylor and Corporal Thorne. So, oh my gosh, was this book everything I want. Like, it has all of my boxes in one book. It has a tortured hero. He has a criminal past. It's a pining hero. He has loved Kate for his whole life, and she doesn't know that. That's the setup of this. He saved her life when she was young, and then he ends up in the same town as her. He ends up in Spindle Cove, and he recognizes her because Kate has a birthmark, one of those port wine birthmarks on her face, which has led her to be a spinster and be in Spindle Cove. She was raised in an orphanage from a young age, and so she doesn't remember that she knows Thorne because it's been 20 years since they've seen each other. And he has purposely been staying away from her since he's been in town, because that's a setup of this book series. Is this militia group ends up in Spindle Cove, which was previously like just women, and then all these men come to town, and it like ruins things for them, and they all fall in love. And then like they end up in this situation where like she has a no good, bad, horrible day, and ends up like he brings her back to town, and she spends this ride home with him and decides that he's the most beautiful man she's ever seen and that she wants to understand him. And it was just so interesting because we see inside his head and we know that he is obsessed with her. Like, we can tell. But he is so sure that, like, I'm not good enough for her. I want her to be happy, but I am not going to be the one that gives her happiness. Well, this situation arises where they are in a fake engagement because of reasons. And Kate realizes that she wants to be with him. And he just is not going to give in because he wants her to have a perfect life. And I love that kind of a hero. So it's very interesting because she is the one pursuing him. And I normally am like, no, I don't want that. But because you see in his head, and I fully know how much he wants her, that she like pushes him just those little bits and pursues him and is like, I will give you all of me. Like, you just have to be brave enough to take me. And guys, I love this. There's so many cute things. There is a torture by tickling scene in here that I won't ruin for you. There is a hero tied to a bed situation that I won't ruin for you. There's lots of heroics. There is swooning, and there is a shared bed situation and fake dating. A hero who, like I said, has a criminal past. He has PTSD. He's the corporal in this militia, and I love it. I love it. It was fantastic, 5-star. And I feel like I need to add it to my favorite books of the year list, which is why I'm trying not to read new books anymore, because it's messing with my list. So there you go. Those are the 11 books that I've read this week so far. This week concluding. Currently in the middle of An Offer from a Gentleman. I'm also reading One Good Earl Deserves a Lover, which is the next Sarah McLean. And then, what else? Oh, I'm in the middle of Left for Wild by Harlow Ray. So those are the 3 books I'm currently reading. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this. Again, thank you to my channel members. So happy to have you. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video all. Bye!